Hey guys, Sean here and welcome to the F1 Word. Now earlier today, Formula 1 revealed its plans for 2021, including a look at the new regulations and the new car. As I said in the preview that went out earlier today, I will be doing a more in-depth video or stream with Chamber, I think, but that will possibly be next week, and so this video is sort of an initial reaction type thing and a quick overview of some of the points. So the big news to kick this off with is that the rules have been unanimously agreed by the World Motorsport Council and will be in place for 2021, with Ross Brawn adding that there is room for a little bit of refinement. In the background you can see the new look cars and they look, well, I've got to be honest, pretty bloody awesome. I can't lie, I'm not a big fan of the wheel covers and the rear wing looks a little bit weird on the Williams render anyway, but I am a massive fan of how this car looks overall. It looks super aggressive and I can't wait to see them on track. At the end of the day though, it doesn't matter what they look like, it is how they race that really matters, and that was one of the key aims of the new regulations. Essentially, allowing the cars to follow each other more closely and thus giving us much closer and better racing. I'll go over a few of the headlines on the technical regulations then. Again, I'll have a proper look at these and we will go into more depth in a future video. But these regulations include an increase in car weight to 768 kilograms. I believe that's an extra 25. And I'm sure that's something the drivers will be absolutely thrilled with, by the way. There are, of course, as ever, additional safety measures, including work to try and contain debris, which is a very interesting read, actually. I do urge you to have a look at that one. Better tethering components and better side impact protection. Renewable fuel content will be doubled to 20% for 2021. There will be a freeze on gearboxes, a ban on hydraulic suspensions, larger wheels and larger internal cockpit dimensions so that taller drivers aren't penalised quite so much. If you do want to have a proper read of all these new technical regulations, you can find a full list on the F1 and FIA website. There aren't a huge number of changes to the sporting regulations, certainly in comparison to some other areas, but the maximum limit of races in a season has been raised to 25, but Chase Carey has stressed that that is the limit and should not be seen as a target. We'll see on that one. But there will be further changes because of the potential for the calendar to expand further, and those changes concern the race weekend structure. Don't worry, no qualifying races, but this does include shifting the driver's press conference from Thursday to Friday, with car scrutineering taking place before FP1, so any new bits of bodywork that were trialled during practice must be removed ahead of FP3. Saturday morning's practice session is also the point at which cars enter Parc Ferme, not Q1 as we see now. Putting it as simply as I can, the car that is scrutinised on a Friday morning is the car that will be raced on Sunday. That might not sound like a big deal, but it really is. Oh yes, and on the subject of Fridays, young drivers will also be given more opportunities. All teams will have to run a driver who has competed in fewer than 2 Grand Prix for at least 2 practice sessions a year. I really like that one. We see it all the time with teams like Williams, for example, but now Ferrari and Red Bull and Mercedes have all got to take part as well. On top of the changes to the technical regulations and the sporting regulations, there are now a whole new set of regulations, and they are the financial regulations. How many times can you say regulations in a minute, Sean? There we go. Included in these is the much discussed cost cap, of course, which is set at $175 million for a 21 race season. That's a key line, and yes, in case you are wondering, that does increase by $1 million for each race added to the calendar, so that's just to cover in case they do decide to go for the full 25, which quite frankly I think they will, but anyway, and it will decrease by $1 million for each race below 21. Some of the team's areas for spending are actually exempt from the cap though, and these include marketing costs, some driver costs, FIA entry fee and super license costs. Now, these financial regulations do also come with an implementation period, but they do not come into force properly, as in they won't be policed, until the end of March 2022. So as an example, at the end of March 2021, teams can voluntarily submit their 2020 financial information, but would face no penalties if there are any discrepancies. Almost like testing out the system, a bit of a dry run, I guess. However, at the end of March 2022, it will be mandatory to submit them and there will be consequences if there are any breaches of the regulations, and Ross Brawn was pretty clear on that. He said in the press conference that the rules, quote, had teeth, and again, quote, if you fraudulently breach the financial regulations, you will be losing your championship. Big penalties potentially then. On top of all of that, there were a few questions thrown at Chase Carey and co at the end, as you'd kind of expect at a press conference. But the one thing I picked out was on the speed. Now apparently the 2021 cars will be close to the pace of the 2016 cars and will potentially be as much or as little, depending on your outlook, as 3 to 3.5 seconds a lap slower than the 2019 cars. Frankly, I don't think that's that big of a hit, especially if it means we're going to get better racing. And again, that's the absolute key, isn't it? We want to see close racing, we want to be excited, we don't want to watch a procession and cars struggling to follow. How amazing would those final few laps have been in Mexico just last week if those cars could follow properly? A quick word on the engines, or power units if you would prefer to use the proper terminology now. They will be virtually the same, but costs are going to be reduced as we pretty much expected really. One final line before I wrap this up though, and this comes from racefans.net, but apparently 2 weeks ago Mercedes and Red Bull attempted to delay the new rules package being introduced, but were overruled by a number of teams, with Ferrari and Williams thought to be just two of them. Interesting stuff, definitely listen out for more of that over the weekend. I mean, look, ultimately the sport needed a big shake-up and it looks like it's finally going to get it. I will always err on the side of caution with things like this though, because there is still a long way to go between now and 2021, and with Ross Brawn saying that things will be refined between now and then, teams will try everything to push through any changes they might want. I'm not saying they'll succeed, but they will bloody try. That being said though, the fact that these rules have been agreed unanimously does give me a lot more confidence than I had even a few weeks ago. As some of you will know, I've had my reservations about all of this and feared that the FIA and F1 would do what they always do and bottle it. You know, with the tyre blanket staying and the standardised brakes and gearbox being put on ice, it was starting to look as though they were going that way. I will also add as well that just because these cars will look like they're doing those renders, it doesn't mean they will rock up to the racetrack looking like that. I can remember seeing some very nice looking renders of the cars when the 2014 changes were coming in, and what we actually got was, well, very different and yeah. At the end of the day, once the designers get their hands on the regulations, there will be changes and different interpretations of those regulations. But if they look anything like they do in the images we've seen today, I will be very happy indeed. And if the changes do have a positive impact on the racing, then it's win-win as far as I'm concerned. That is it then for this video, but I do want to add once again that this is not an overview of everything, it's just a look at some of the headlines, but I will talk to Stuart over the weekend and see if we can get together to have a proper chat about them. And I'll let you know more about that nearer the time, but do let me know your thoughts on the new look cars and regulations down in the comment section. I hope this has got you excited for 2021. Also, don't forget to check out the US Grand Prix preview that went up earlier today. But other than that, I will be back soon with more content as ever. And in the meantime, don't forget that you can follow me over on social media and all of the links you need for that are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.